Welcome back to Made Up of Wires, where we are decompiling Castlevania Symphony of the Night. We're going to keep doing that today. If you're not familiar with the Castlevania Symphony of the Night decompilation project, you can go to soten.z.dev to learn more. We've been working on deduping some of the Doppleganger 10 code that is the same as Alucard code. If I can find it here. There we go. So we're working on this here. I don't know how much additional code I have that hasn't been submitted yet, but some chunk is in there. I think we're going to work on the mist, entity mist function, so Doppelganger can turn into mist, just like Alucard can. And so we have an analogous function there. It is not quite the same, though, as Alucard's version, and so that's what I've been working on a little bit before the stream. What are those differences, and can we find them? So I have a scratch already started here in decomp.me. If you're not familiar with decomp.me, it is a tool used for collaborative decompilation. You can create, they call them scratches, but upload some assembly, disassembled machine code, and it will give you the tooling that you need to recompile it to recompile C code to that same system. So we have a Symphony of the Night preset already. Gives us the right version of GCC, gives us the right options for compiling a matching function. And the goal here, as always, is to write C code that will compile to exactly the same thing that was on the Symphony of the Night disk. We're focusing on the PlayStation version right now, but hypothetically, theoretically, this should work on the PSP as well without too many modifications. So I've taken the DRA version, so this is the Alucard version of this function, and uploaded that and started working on some of the things that I know are going to be different. For example, Doppelganger is used as the macro for the entity being worked on versus player. There's certain functions that are going to be GAPI functions versus them being called, of course I can't find any right now, free primitives, for example, is a field in the GAPI struct, which is a function pointer instead of in DRA where the function is called directly. And a few other things. So what I've been doing right now, I know that I'm going to have to map the addresses that are DRA addresses to memory that is in the Doppelganger overlay. So I'm working on that at the moment. And to do that, I'm looking at the difference. So on the left here is the assembly that we want to target. On the right is the assembly that we're currently generating with our C code. And this is a pretty easy thing. This is just going through, pasting the symbols that we are using, replacing them with symbols that we need, and then that becomes a match. There's a lot of symbols in this mist function, so it is going to be a bit of work to do them all, but not too much. There is some code differences as well, and we'll get to those eventually. So right now this is mostly bookkeeping. That's what a lot of decompilation is bookkeeping. There's a few things like this, and we could go through and add symbols here if we want. Down on line 77. Doppelganger facing left. This isn't the worst address to add a symbol for. So let's do that. So I'm going to be editing the symbol table for BO4. BO4 is the boss. Getting a doppelganger facing left. And we get the address from the computed address here, this 1D. Nope, that's the wrong one. Line 77. This 807. And it's prefixed with a D. And we can move that up to the top. And is that not quite the right order? Oh, so next time we extract this, it will have the correct, or it'll have a symbol that's recognizable, which will be easy, make things easier to do in the future. We could do the same thing with anim set, which is right here. So we have our doppelganger anim set. And I'm going to do the same thing with the address. Get it from here. And I don't have to put these in order. The linter will put these in the correct order, which is just their offsets in memory. It's a little odd to have symbols that are not part of an overlay, but these symbols are really only relevant to this overlay. However, they're going to be relevant to Doppelganger 10 as well, so it may be worth putting them in the global symbols US. And there is space for them there, so maybe I will do that because all the player symbols are there, and this is part of the same array as player. So we'll put them there for now, and then go back and keep working. So any of these, for example, on line 70, we have these addresses here. I want to replace those with the local versions. So the variables that are there are the ones from DRA, and we can't use those ultimately. So down here on line 148 is where we see the first big divergence of, sorry, not 148, 81. The first big divergence between the DRA version and our version. There is some additional work being done for Doppelganger that we're not doing for Alucard. Hey, Dick Down Deep, good to have you back. Yeah, when 6K is the limit for OBS. I don't know if it's the limit for Twitch, but we still have a lot of headroom if I need to go further up. And yeah, back to 60 frames a second, which is nice, but it's going to chew up my disk, I'm sure. I'm going to save this. So I'm going to look at the decomp because this is big enough that it's not just some variable changes. And look at all the variables that the decomp generates. Somebody had a lot of fun doing this one. It was originally decompiled. So we have our plus and minus 20s here. That corresponds with these. There is this assignment. Oh, this is probably facing left. We don't have a... Sorry. We don't have a function signature. I wish I remembered some quote from the Lawnmower Man, but it's been many years since I've seen it. I'm not sure why the context didn't pick up. Oh, it's probably this. M2C does not like conditional macros. So let's do that and see if that works any better, and it does work a lot better. So it looks like there is this additional shift assignment, and that may be all of the extra instructions. It's not used until way down here. And then that is never used. So there's some funniness here that we might not be able to rely on the decomp for. Var low is, I believe, used for like multiplication and division overflow, if I remember correctly. Let's go back over here and see if we can, first of all, find what or if these variables are being used anywhere yet, and they're not. But then also, what might this be? So we're loading a word from this 40AC, so a 32-bit value, into register V0, adding this DA0 with an offset of 2, so DA2 into A0, and then subtracting the offset of 2. So I want to see what for S8, what offset 2 is going to be. S8, it looks like, is our self. So I'm going to look at the entity structure. Offset 2 is going to be position X high. So we're subtracting whatever is at this value here. So I'm going to start by attempting to do that. I don't know yet what this is going to be or if we will need it. We are going to have to use this value somewhere, otherwise it will not none of this code will generate because it's just a dead store. So that the result of that subtraction is stored back onto the stack. And we can't force that unless we create an array. If we create an array, we can. And that's kind of a cheap way to do it, but we'll... no, it didn't do it. Usually they'll do something. The other way we can do it, but this will generate more code, is by saying that this is volatile. But that doesn't store it either. I'm a little surprised by that. Oh. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. MIDI. Appreciate it. So yeah, what I'm trying to do is force this store. Oh, there we go. So we have our subtraction. We're loading an additional value from here. This again is not defined yet. This is an unsigned 16 array. It's a little hard when neither the code that's been decompiled or the code you're basing this on has these instructions. But so here's what actually the decomp may be a little more useful than I thought. So it did have it just as a sign 32. Let's use that. I missed that. We still do need some variables, and we'll have to figure out what those variables are. So this looks like a for loop. Just use I. This var a0, we're taking I plus, oh, this is odd. It's, we're adding 14, so 9, incrementing 9 shorts each time. Here's our offset x. This looks like it comes out. Right, how does this? Almost done, almost done. Oh, we are taking a reference here. I'm going to I'm going to say I times 9 plus 1. And we'll see if that ends up generating the same thing. Subscripted value is not array or pointer. Line 88. Yes, yes. Agree. And let's see what that ends up looking like. Not too bad. So it optimizes this out into A0 plus 2, which is what I wanted. We're not getting a store back to the stack. And I think I might have screwed this up just a little bit. Let's go back down and look at what decomp.me said. So we have this var a0. It almost seems like that addition is being done, but I'm not sure why. Let's try moving this into so that looks a little better. The optimizer will pull this out, but it isn't. It's reloading this each time, even though that's not necessary. So I'm gonna take that out again. What we're missing here is a store to the stack, and then a load back from the stack. And I'm not sure why. There's nothing in here really that, so I can attempt to make this volatile again to force the store. And so that does, that does force the store, but then it just loads it right away again, and it's not changing, so it doesn't have to, it doesn't have to keep loading it. So something is happening, and maybe, let's try this. I'll get rid of this. I'll try to do this addition in a separate, on a separate line. This shouldn't make any difference from an instruction perspective. And this actually might be a good thing to go look at the PSP version for. Yeah, that's even worse. So I'm going to keep it the way that it was, and then we'll come back to that with the PSP version. Moving down on line 94, we have 0 being stored in register S8. It's unrelated to this. It's going to be something else down the way. We have a hint that this function, which we don't have a symbol name for yet, should be called entity player blink white. It's going to be Doppelganger specific, and maybe we can work on that if no headways happening here. Here's another global that we can rename. We can look at who did this as well and see if we get stuck, if they can lend a hand. So we have a register issue here. I'm not too concerned about the register issue. As other things work out, we'll figure that out. I did make one change to how this function is structured. There was a go-to at the end to go down to this line, and I was able to replace it with a significant match just by moving that up and then returning immediately. What's odd is you can't break here, which would have been equivalent to the go-to, and I'm not sure why breaking fails, but that's the way life goes sometimes. Assumptions aren't always obvious. Yeah, still a bunch of register issues here. We have our nice symbols that came through. So here's an instruction difference, load half versus load half unsigned. This looks like the arg to this function call, and it's arg3, which is facing left, which we don't have the signature for this, so let's grab the signature, and I think that will fix the instruction. Without the function signature there, the compiler is saying, I'm loading 16 bits. I need to sign extend those to 32 bits because all parameters are integers. But because we know it's assigned 16, it only needs to load the first 16 bits and the others will be ignored, even though the size of that parameter is still 32 bits. We do have the wrong function name, and I will fix that. Our register issues are kind of compounding as we go down. This looks... so some constant changes. Flags, I'm going to, instead of looking up all the flags, I'm just going to put the constant value, which will fix this. Interesting that it's loading it as a signed value. I should be able to load it as an unsigned. I'm not terribly concerned. I think when the linter comes through and replaces that with constants, that it'll work out. Now we have another global. More tabs. As many tabs as I can get. Thank you again, Mr. MIDI. 222. Instead of this being stored this angle 3 doesn't seem like it's getting stored here, and it may be just getting stored out of order. There's a 0 being stored as well. So let me try to move this down after all this this other stuff and see if that makes a difference. This seems like a job for the permuter or, again, the PSP version. Yeah, the ordering of this is definitely odd. I'm not sure why that's not coming up. I will replace these. Oh, uh-oh. Screwed up a declaration. Oh, so here is, this is interesting, and probably why this wasn't working as expected. So we have our mist struct, and we're looking at position xi high here, which is the offset 1. We can get rid of the times 9 now. And we can get rid of this declaration. Let's go back up to the top. Let's see if that has all worked itself out now. No, still not. So there still is some store to the stack happening that hasn't been figured out yet. This is probably going to be down here on line 222. This is going to be a similar I don't know what's the right word. We can probably get away with not having a separate pointer to this and use indexing instead. However, there is a lot of code that is assuming that we're going to be maintaining a pointer to this. I'm going to try replacing it with the index and see if that makes a difference. I don't really like what's going on there. Maybe I'll do the same instead of, I was going to change this to array subscript, but I'm going to go the opposite direction and do the same thing up over here. And see if that works out. No, same thing. So this down here, this may be able to use a array subscript as well. Again, the PSP version is probably the best way to determine which way that should go. So I'm going to skip any differences there for now. There's not really, I guess, that code is matching except for this 0 assignment in the store that we're out of order. So I'm not too concerned with changing it. Uh, 273. There's a call to destroy entity which doesn't exist in the original. And our jump is different. So BB08. So that suggests that this is an else. And then we're going to come down here. So maybe this was just out of order, but that breaks things quite a bit more. So BB0 versus FD0. Here I think we want to break. And that might be difference. No. Nope. Place this global while I see it. All right, let's look at this again. $270. I'm gonna undo these. If you want to follow along, I will paste this into chat as well. Mr. MIDI saying xvar equals xvar 3 plus r cosine angle 2 shift 4 shift 8. Would it have been written like that? So there's a couple things that we need to remember. First being that there's two types of fixed point numbers used throughout SOTN. And so when you see a shift by 4, it's a conversion from SOTN fixed to PlayStation fixed. Let me find that shift 4. So this we have 12 bits. I'm trying to remember. I thought it was 12 bits. 16 bits of no 6. SOTN is 16 and 16, and PlayStation is 12 and 22. I don't know if the 12 was on the decimal side though, so this would actually be in the wrong direction. No, it's just changing the scale for the multiplication, and then shifting another 8 bits to get it to a decimal value. That's how I read it. So it's not necessarily an optimization. They're just dealing with these packed structures that there's not intrinsic support for. So now we deal with floats with their mantises and fractional components, and the hardware just deals with all of that for us. Here, there really wasn't any direct hardware support for it. So just a different set of tools necessary. I don't know why. The big question I think for me is, why did Konami choose to use 16-bit, so a 32-bit fixed type that has 16 and 16? They definitely do a lot of work where they're pulling out just one half of that value and just operating in, and maybe that was it. Maybe they said the vast majority of the time we're just working on the whole number portion of these values, and so having it at the 16-bit boundary allows us to do that very easily. But that's pretty much it. The difference between the two fixed point values. or types. All right, continuing on. Way down on line 320. I'm going to replace this function, and that'll give us the correct signature again. I'm going to move this function signature into the context because we'll need it when compiling locally. Another immediate value that's different, line 328. Sometimes I wonder if it's nice that there is code already available to tweak and do this, but would it have been faster to just re-decompile this? I'm not sure. Line 340. Yeah, so a bunch of register issues. Here we have so down on line 397, a load from a variable or a global instead of 0. And where is that 0 getting set? Maybe this. It didn't. Oh no, I lost my place. This didn't look like it. It is this. This one was 0 before. So why is it getting loaded early up here into T0, and then T0 is never used? Not sure what's happening there. Because it is getting loaded again down here. Some shifts below. Not sure what those are. And then down on 411. We have these 0 stores. They're not being stored that way. Oh, this is interesting. So this is 1D, 3D, AO, 1D. Oh, where's 0A4? Sorry, I thought these might be part of the same structure, but that's not the case. So this 0 assignment isn't happening. Let's try to get rid of that, and that doesn't help. Maybe these are inverted. Not quite. Something else is going on there. It may be. I'm gonna have to go through and look at these. me 1 second, I'll be right back, and we'll keep working on this. What kind of production is this? Low rent. I'm gonna break these out into separate assignments so I can reorder them more easily. Or, not reorder them at all and just have it work. No, they do still need to change a little. So it looks like the 01 and 00 can stay a one-liner. But not these. Actually, those are fine as well. I'm not sure why they're getting optimized out the way that they are. There's nothing. So these are backwards. So they'll need to be fixed eventually, but right now they're matching, which is, well, no, they're not matching. If I switch their order, I was going to assume that they were going to generate the same thing. There's nothing that having them on separate lines is doing that's particularly special. This may, though, be being indexed. So let's go look at the decomp and see if there is something I'm missing here. We're down in after the case. Can't say that this this would have been much better. So how this is structured seems quite a bit different from what this ended up looking like. Yeah, this is pretty unrecognizable in the way that it is. Okay, so this looks like what I was looking for. So we have our X and Y calculations look quite a bit different. Maybe we're on the wrong one. So I think this draw mode flag doesn't look like it's getting set. Oh, and yeah, because we're not version HD, so this code isn't running. I don't have to worry about that. Another for loop down here. Yeah, there's something else going on that is not obvious to me. We are making some progress, though. I'm going to grab the PSP version, which will add yet another complication in all this, but I think will help a bit. So I'm going to use the flags constant as my search. So it looks like we have 3 functions that have that string in it. It's only used once. Did I say 3? I meant 3 functions. It's only used once in our function, so it's one of these outer ones, I think. Let's see if I can find another constant that seems unique. Let's look at this on line 272, what these params are. Uh, 5D0, that's actually pretty reasonable, I think. Oops. Search for the right thing. So it looks like it's this one. The important thing is that we haven't forgot about Trey. So we're going to have to be careful to fix primitives because primitives are used quite a bit. And then we'll take PlayStation code and use that. So all of our symbols are going to be wrong, but that's okay. Really, we just want the structure. Let's grab the PSP mask. All right, so we're going to see a lot of the same things. Symbols being mismatched. Not worried about registers at the moment. Really, I want to get back to where are different structures, code structures, and blocks that aren't in the original. Let's go down to where I was on line 411 and see how much of that's matching. If there's anything obvious here that shouldn't be there. Oops. This does look like it was out of order. So I think making this inline should be fine. It does look like it's just a load of a word. Registers are incorrect. Not going to worry about that. Yeah, so this... Oh, if not defined. So I misread this earlier. So this looks like it's just gone. And that can be gone then on the PlayStation side as well. It was a if and def, so if not defined. Down on 423, there's a move. And does this... So this may be due to register pressure that these are getting shifted around. I'm not going to worry about that at the moment because those are registers used internally in these operations. And we'll come back to that if everything else is fixed and that's the only thing that's wrong. This will be in a pretty good spot. So I'm not too worried about that at the moment. I don't see anything major except for registers down below. Let's go back up and figure out what's going on up here. Around line 90. So all of this logic that wasn't originally in the PlayStation version looks like it wasn't necessarily in the PSP version either. Excuse me. I think I've briefly mentioned on the stream before, but the PSP version seems to be related more to the JP version of the game than the US version. So there's some changes that are in the US version that get reverted, basically, including some bugs that were fixed that get reverted in the PSP version. I wish I had some examples of those offhand. I'm going to look at the M2C decomp here. There's some additional instructions that are happening here as well that are slightly different. So we have the facing left, which is here. Loading the step. I don't see anything else though. There is there's this additional load here that is, yeah, this all seems the same. Oh, maybe it hadn't recompiled. Oh, or no, I'm sorry, I'm just missing this down here. So if the primitive index, basically if the primitive wasn't loaded, we're going to be doing something different. This came from how the PlayStation was using jumps. So let's go down to this else, which is way, way down here. Yeah, so this is just facing left and then returning. But it almost seems like a break. Let me see if that works better on the PSP. It does. Oh, but we can't just break. So another option is to invert this. And then looking at this again, I want to see what... so if this wasn't -1, we're going to go all the way down. And so we do fall down regardless of which side this was. It's going to fall down and do the facing left check, which is different from the PlayStation. There's a bunch actually that seems different in here from the PlayStation side. Or, sorry, the DRA side. though I think this is just a bad, I'm going to revert this. This is just a bad decomp by M2C. It's mixing in, basically deeply nesting this case into this switch. So this, unfortunately, this can't be trusted. It does lend itself, though. This this originally was a label, and so maybe I'll go back and change it back to a label, even though I don't like that. I mean, that's unfortunately that's getting the matches, so it's not always what you want, but it's what works. So let's take this over to the PlayStation version and see if that is any better. Oh, wrong editor. So yeah, that is better. Still a few odd things here and there, but most of the registers have worked themselves out as well. There's a store missing at the end that needs to be resolved. And we need to see if that's part of the for loop or not. Now let's look again at the PSP version and see what is or is not missing. So we have to ignore all these immediate values, which is a lot of noise, but is what it is. So here, 121, we have a type issue. I'm just looking at, making sure the right thing. Oh, I have the wrong mask. It is just a signed integer mask. Immediate. 173, this is the constant. Again, this constant will be replaced by Soten lint. Putting a U afterwards should make it unsigned, but I'm not getting that, so I'm not too worried about it right now. I'd worry more if the constants were replaced and it didn't work. 197 should be a 5. So we're branching differently here on 278. So let's look at that. This should be a go-to to this set facing left. Same thing on 295. That came from a mistake that I had made earlier. Incorrectly assumed that this was happening after, like immediately after the switch. So besides that immediate value, PSP version, I think may be matching so far. Yeah, there's nothing else here, so let's... have I used... Yes, I have. The one time I can think... I think this is how it worked. I was writing in Nginx extension, patch, whatever you call... Like, Nginx doesn't natively support modules, at least when I was working on it, 5 or so years ago. And so the way that you would add functionality to Nginx was you'd write your code to basically patch their code, kind of like an Apache server. If you didn't know, that's where that name came from. And they do a lot of their error handling in Nginx with GoTos, which I think is fine for low-level stuff, where you don't have exceptions. And you want to clean up resources, and that cleanup isn't trivial. All right, so there's still some missing stuff here. So it almost seems like array access on these fields. So we're loading not just A0, but A8 and AC as well. I'm going to try just adding those. We wouldn't see that show up obviously on the PlayStation or on the PSP because they're just immediate values anyway. So I'm going to try this. No, it's not letting there. So let's 459. Yeah, definitely not something common though. Never in a language that didn't support exceptions. Hey, Project Oblivion, good to have you. Sorry I haven't looked at your makefile changes. I should probably go do that. Has that been merged? So what we're looking at here is it's somewhere around Doppelganger. Oh, right around this. So it's code that's happening after we're setting facing left. So let's find that. That should be easy to find in the decomp. We're just storing some values off towards the end. So it looks like this. And then we need to figure out why might that not be. Okay, so that looks like that works. Why are these not in the PSP version? Or maybe they are. They're not. All right, so I think I might try this out. There are still a lot of immediate differences. What I want to make sure is there are no instruction differences. Even instruction differences are fine if there's something like this. That's okay. I just don't want any additions or deletion of functions like this. This is okay too, because for all of, even though it's this chunk will be obviously wrong, I still have the same number of instructions, and by the time I'm done here, my no, my offsets aren't the same anymore, are they? They're already wrong here. So what I want is my offsets to be the same. So I need to figure out where those are diverging. Up here. This is the same issue that was happening earlier on. Some load and store to the stack that is not obvious. So something's happening here that, let me try this. Seems a little odd, but possibly making this a sine 16. Well, it does something, but not what I wanted. And what about an unsigned 16? That's not going to help. Yeah, so I need some way of forcing this to the stack. We'll hack this with a do well. So that adds the the additional instruction, or at least one additional instruction. But I need 2. We're gonna have to throw this in the permuter. Let me try this. Let me try doing it inline. Calculating inline wouldn't work on the PSP though. Oops. Can't get rid of that. Let's look at the PSP and just double check that. Oh, it doesn't need to work on the PSP because it doesn't exist on the PSP. So we can do whatever we want without having to consider that. So what can we do? So we need a trick to, yeah, so this does it. This gives us the 2 additional instructions. It's not correct. It screws up a whole bunch of other stuff, but it makes alignment work. And so maybe that's enough. It screws up registers. It screws up a lot of registers. So I don't want to do that either. What else can we do? Make an array. I don't think that worked earlier, and so I don't think it's gonna work now. It doesn't. We can make it a bigger array. It does work. Kind of gross. And is that going to break other things? That breaks a lot of stuff too. C++ no accept. Not familiar. Especially modern C++ is lacking. I'm reading about it now. Yeah, I'm not super familiar with the current state of C++ exceptions. Coming from like most of my deep algorithmic programming was probably Java. And I don't mind that Java makes you declare exceptions. And so no except seems like the inverse of that, where it's almost like the pure or const attributes on functions in GCC. Just part of the function contract, and therefore an optimizer can kind of come through and say, I know that I don't have to worry about setting up exception stack frames and things like that. But I don't know. I don't know enough about it. Okay, so what happened here? So we broke some registers. Yeah, Java is different. it has its pluses and minuses. The language actually, like around Java 8, the language started getting reasonable. And I didn't really mind the language. Once they started adding lambdas and some of the more functional paradigms into the language, that was nice. Java frameworks are probably the bigger issue than the language itself. Most of those suck. Or they were they were on their way to sucking. There were many that I liked a lot, and then I don't know, things just slowly got worse and worse. All right, so I'm stuck. Let me go and see where we are. So unfortunately, this isn't going to align. And because it's 8 bytes different, because it won't align, doing diffs is going to be a pain. Vim diff or vbin diff may work better than my stupid tool. So I'm going to take this over and see what happens. So first of all, can we compile entity blink, entity player blink white? So we have this function. I'm going to go over here. It's not showing up in the dupes report. So we know what that function offset is, though. So I think I'm going to just replace that with this function. And that might be worth, that might, yeah, maybe we should look at that next. I'll do a diff, but I think it's going to be a mess. Yeah. Once the offset gets off, it's no fun to look at. I can do don't I have this bound to diff? Oh, I don't. All these are slightly different because of how you find the path in different versions of the game. And so I basically the same script for all the different types. And then I'll add a feature to one and then don't do it for the others. And the way that I'm doing this, unfortunately, vbin diff doesn't give me correct offsets. With vbin diff, I don't actually need to run it through hex dump first, and that's the issue. Is I run it through hex dump. Let's try vim diff. Okay, so this is a little better. This is my it's still too much for me to really make sense of it. So not helpful right now. I'm going to revert that. And let's look at, I do need to, I moved those symbols over. So I'm going to have to extract. Yeah, send it over, Project Oblivion. Mine is just super naive, and it works really well for constants and other things like that, addresses. When you have the structure correct, even like sign differences, it can find those relatively easily. If you know it. Oh, these may be related to the doppelganger. Oh no, they're not. I changed those symbols, so I need to go through and recompile those objects. And that should be fine. Okay, so that's working. Let's look at this other function and see what it is. So I'm assuming that this is going to be very close to entity player blink white, but since it's not showing up in the diff report, possibly not. And then what time is it? That's a little late. I'll look at this though, and I do kind of want to look at Doppelganger 40. This is actually a very long function, or seemingly long. And I'll look at entity player blink white. Yeah, so this is actually a relatively non-trivial function as well. A lot of code to get the player to blink white. That is bonkers. So some go-tos in here as well. So this is going to be a non-trivial one as well. I was hoping that was going to be something similar, maybe just changing polygon colors, but it looks like not. Let me. This is going to be a significant amount of work just to get the scratch set up. So I'm not going to do that today. Too much work for that. What else can we do? Let's look at. I'm going to delete this because I'm not going to work on that. Let's look at the stage, and I want to see what boss. So Doppelganger 40 is RB04. So I'm going to import that. And what I want to see is do we have, I'll save that for tomorrow. Do we have the same implementation for Doppelganger 40 that we do for regular Doppelganger? And if not, what is the difference between the two? Let's see if I can snooze this last ad so I don't exit on an ad. Come on, window. Let me resize you. Well, it's not letting me snooze. So that's all I have. If you want to know more about Symphony Night Decompilation, go to soten.z.dev, and you can see the progress that we've made. And a lot of people in the chat are the same people that are working on decompilation. So come join us Monday through Thursday to do all this stuff with the decompilation, and check out the VODs on YouTube. And that's all I have for you. Oh. Thank you, Project Oblivion. He gave me a diff script, and we'll look at that tomorrow and see if that helps. But that's it. Adios.